Hello and welcome to the final edition of 50 Years Serving the Island. In 1968, Manx Radio was transferred into public ownership, and throughout 2018 we've been celebrating 50 years as the island's public service broadcaster by looking back through the Manx Radio archives and enjoying a number of highlights from down the years. So for our final programme this evening, we thought we'd take a gentle wander through the last 5 decades to bring you a lucky dip selection from the Manx Radio archives, and hopefully you'll hear some voices and features that will bring back some fond memories. So let's begin with one of Manx Radio's most famous voices, Peter Neal.
The events that made the news in the island in 1970 are now, like all of yesterday's news, history. There have been incidents sad, exciting, amusing and dramatic. They held our attention in 1970 for perhaps a few minutes, or perhaps even a few days. But history they all are now. So before we finally close the book on the first year of the 70s, let's take a look back over its news scene.
We started in January with the first of 2 big birching controversies of the year still going on but rapidly petering out. Then the Royal Navy arrested an Irish fishing boat for illegal fishing in Manx waters, and an American Super Sabre jet fighter crashed in the sea off Peel while dropping bombs on the NATO bombing range off Derby.
In February, we saw a major debate in Tynwald on the common market, the first of many in the ensuing months. This is one story that will continue to make the Manx headlines into 1971 and perhaps beyond. Then there was an explosion which sank a fishing boat, the Essex Girl, in Douglas Harbour.
In March, the Royal Commission on the Constitution came to Douglas to take evidence for 3 days. Later in the month, Cambrian Airways brought their first BAC Oneeleven jet airliner to the island for a demonstration flight prior to its introduction on the London service later in the year. For Manx Radio, Peter Neal and Terry Kringle went on this inaugural flight, and this is part of their report.
Well, good day to you now from the real comfort of the BAC Oneeleven on its way to Northern Ireland at some 500 miles an hour. The takeoff I was very impressed with, and sat next to me is our newsman Terry Kringle. Terry, it's just like the commercials, the takeoff. What were your impressions?
I really enjoyed that. Nothing like the old Viscount takeoff. A world of difference, a world of difference.
The speed of takeoff must be something fantastic. I mean, normally it's a slow build-up, but this seems as soon as it moves, it's really motoring.
Yes, my back really slammed into the back of the seat, and the power was fantastic. You could really feel it driving into you. It must have been quite a sight from the outside. It was
the comfort of the flight, though, too. It's not as noisy as you would expect from a jet, is it?
No, it seemed to be well insulated from the noise of the power unit. It's right down the back of the aircraft, but there's obviously a lot of power there, because we'll be doing, I suppose now, going on 500 miles an hour. Yet you can hear the background music quite plainly. You and I are chatting here in a normal tone of voice. On the old Viscount, you know, it was a bit more primitive, a lot more primitive.
Yes. This is an innovation, of course, that I think will please a lot of people. The background music makes it very pleasant.
It is, it's very pleasant indeed, and once they give us a drink, it'll be just like sitting in the pub, won't it?
Lovely. We'll have another chat, perhaps, as I say, we're on our way to Northern Ireland now, and we're doing a tour of the island, and we'll have a chat of our impressions of the island from the air a little later.
Yes, I shall look forward to that.
Well, now continuing the story of this inaugural flight of the BAC Oneeleven, Cambrian Airways operated, back from Belfast and now flying around the island. In fact, the trip from the Calf of Man to the Point of Ayr took a matter of minutes only, and right now we're passing over Laxey. And Terry, look out through the window. The island certainly looks beautiful from the air.
It looks marvellous, yeah. It's unfortunate we haven't been sitting on the wrong side of the aircraft, and we're having a look through the window on the opposite side of the gangway. But we're getting a pretty good view. Laxey looked very splendid in the sunshine.
I just said, Terry, it seemed a matter of minutes only from the Calf of Man to the Point of Ayr.
Yeah, it was the quickest I've ever made. I can't even get that fast in the Morgan.
Yeah.
A look back at some of the news stories from 1970. At the end of that decade, Ian Cannell presented a review of Millennium Year as the island celebrated 1,000 years of Tynwald. And here he looks at the royal visit on our National Day in July.
For even if man in your ancient Tynwald assembled, I call upon you as an expression of your loyalty to give 3 cheers to Her Majesty the Queen Hip, hip! Hooray! Hip, hip! Hooray! Hip, hip! Hooray! Has your Majesty any further commands?
If any persons wish to present a petition for redress, let them now come forward.
The ancient right of free men of man to petition the Lord at Tynwald, the highest court in the land. Well, Millennium Year produced a record number of petitions covering subjects ranging from pollution by nuclear waste from Windscale Power Station to the future of the birch as a form of corporal punishment. All would receive the same consideration.
In accordance with Standing Order 140, I shall refer these petitions to the Standing Orders Committee of Tynwald, who will report on them at their earliest convenience.
Well, after the Tynwald ceremony, the Queen went on to Government House for avocado pears, poached salmon and strawberries. Then, in the afternoon, she travelled west again, this time to Peel, where the new secondary school was to be given the distinction of being the only school on the island to be opened by a reigning monarch. The name, Queen Elizabeth School, had its critics, but nevertheless there were large crowds outside it on the Douglas Road as Her Majesty the Queen arrived. And as the fanfare is played, so the royal carriage comes into the forecourt. I can see the grey horses now going past the main entrance doorway. The carriage comes to a halt. The door is opened, and Her Majesty the Queen and His Royal Highness the Duke of Edinburgh, now in morning dress, have arrived at Peel School. Her Majesty is received by His Excellency the Lieutenant Governor, Sir John Paul, who is presenting Mrs. Betty Hanson, the Chairman of the Isle of Man Board of Education. She, of course, is also Chairman of the Isle of Man Government Millennium Committee, so she has certainly a lot of responsibility on this day in 1,000 years for the Isle of Man. She is now presenting Mr. T.L. Ellis, the Chairman of the Secondary and Further Education Committee of the Board of Education, the Director of Education, Mr. Alan Davis, and his Deputy, Mr. G.A. Baker, the Headmaster of the school, Mr. Bob Foster, and representatives of the contractors, Pochin Isle of Man Limited, and the architect, Mr. Anthony Snow, who will present the ceremonial key to Her Majesty, who will then open the main door of the building. The key is proffered to Her Majesty, who accepts it, and is now about to open the door and to enter the school. The door opens, and Her Majesty the Queen walks into Peel Secondary School, accompanied by Mrs. Betty Hanson, the Chairman of the Isle of Man Board of Education.
Your Majesty, Your Royal Highness, Your Excellency, Lady Paul, my Lord Bishop, Mr. Speaker, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. In welcoming Your Majesty to this school, I express the greatest possible joy and honour that the Board of Education and the people of the island feel about your presence here this afternoon. There has been a long-standing tradition in the west of the island for education, and in many ways this area has, over the centuries, been the vanguard of educational development in the Isle of Man. It is most fitting, therefore, that this beautiful school should find its home in Peel. Your Majesty will be aware of the great affection which the people here have for you and your family, and I find it difficult to express in words our gratitude for the honour which you are bestowing on us today. Your Majesty, may I humbly ask you to unveil the plaque which commemorates this historical event.
Now Her Majesty the Queen is moving across, accompanied by Mrs. Hanson, and she pulls the cord which reveals the commemorative plaque. The photographs are taken, and Her Majesty returns to her seat. Then a choir of primary school children from all parts of the island, conducted by Alan Pickard, sang 2 Manx songs, including the Spinning Wheel Song. At the end of the opening ceremony, the future pupils of the new Queen Elizabeth School gave the Queen and the Duke of Edinburgh a rousing send-off on their way to join about 1,500 guests from all walks of island life at a royal garden party in the school grounds.
Ian Cannell, looking back at the royal visit on Tynwald Day in 1979. Moving into the 80s now, and here's a little gem that we've come across. For many years, and for some listeners it seemed like many, many years, Manx Radio broadcast a daily serial. Based around an Australian coach company in the late 1890s, the Castlereagh line charted the lives and loves of those who owned and worked for the company. Characters such as Lottie Long, Jack Seeger and Matt Gore became well known to our listeners. This short excerpt from an episode broadcast in 1984 sadly hasn't preserved well in terms of quality. But here's just a few seconds to take us back to those heady days of the Castlereagh line.
What did you mean this morning about Seeger?
You want him dead. So do I.
Why?
For a number of reasons, darling. Not the least of them being that he stands between me and control of the company.
She stood at the rail, smoking the cigarette I'd lit for her. So beautiful in the soft moonlight, I had an overwhelming urge to reach out and touch her. And yet I was repelled by her. This woman who'd lain the night before with Jack Seeger, who'd submitted to his lust and returned it.
You're listening to 50 Years Serving the Island, a look back through the Manx Radio archives as we celebrate 5 decades as the island's public service broadcaster. And as we conclude 2018 with our final edition of the programme, we're taking a nostalgic trip through a lucky dip of Manx Radio voices, features and news reports. There we brought you a short extract from an episode of the Castlereagh line. But moving now into the 90s, and to this station promotion from 1991, A Day in the Life of Manx Radio, which features a number of the station's best-loved voices down the years.
The voice of man, AM and FM, Manx Radio.
Welcome to the Isle of Man's independent commercial radio station. Broadcasting 18.5 hours a day from studios located in the island's capital, Douglas, Manx Radio has been in operation since 1964, making it Britain's oldest licensed commercial radio station. And with those 27 years behind us, a wealth of experience is brought into our daily output. Beginning at 6:30 a.m. with Bob Harrison on the breakfast programme.
There's a survey just come out from Babysham, you see. Now, come on, let me try it on you. I'm going to give you a list of sort of ladies. Who would you like to be romantically involved with if you were able to? Let me get you out of the cart on that one.
Okay.
Madonna, Betty Boo, Natasha Kinski, Michelle Pfeiffer, Kylie Minogue, Kim Basinger, Whitney Houston. There we are. Who out of that little lot would you like to sort of be romantically involved with?
Whitney Houston.
Whitney Houston. You're in the minority. Only 9.9% said they.
The Breakfast Show, with news and weather reports on the hour, headlines and updates on the half hour. Manx Airlines sponsored flight information. Steam Packet sponsored sailing information. Mandate, a 1-hour news and current affairs program offering alternative listening on FM between 7:30 and 8:30 a.m. And the sometimes controversial but always stimulating wit and satire of Terry Kringle with the Kringle File, sponsored by Barclays Bank.
The file was also told that an honourable member, who shall be nameless, was found to be asleep during Tuesday afternoon's session at the moment when he was called upon to vote in a division on a clause in the Trade Unions Bill. Now, you may ask why he should be nameless on the file. Well, it's a matter of fair dues, really. He never split on me when I fell asleep in the House of Keys, which happened often enough when I was a parliamentary hack.
The 9 a.m. until midday segment is handled by Paul Moulton, who often takes his program out onto the road and into the community, meeting local listeners and celebrities. Along with its carefully chosen and presented music, Mid-Morning is a mix of dedications, community information, including crime busters from police headquarters, financial news at 10 from the offices of a local firm of stockbrokers, short sponsored features on everything from photography to health and beauty treatment, theatre to car maintenance, and a daily phone-in helpline.
Good morning. I'm looking for a bike for a girl who's going to be
Good morning, Swap Shop. Good morning. May I put two swaps on, please, Paul, for a neighbour?
Good morning. I'm looking for an old iron
There's
bed
a good
for...
deal waiting here for you. A good deal waiting here for you.
Susie Richardson's Woman's World from 1:30 to 3 is a mixture of music and interviews with women from a variety of occupations, including law, accountancy, medicine, and weight watching.
There's a place in the sun, all right, and it's right here, the Isle of Man, bathed in sunshine today. And we've found out now the young Miss Sale who weighed in this morning is going to be Samantha Elizabeth. And in fact, she was rather early, so she gave everybody a bit of a surprise, but they're absolutely thrilled to bits. And her mummy and daddy are over the moon. Crikey, what a busy family. Here's a little Misty Blue from Dorothy Moore. Are you all right today? Of course you are. Look at the weather.
At 3 p.m, it's Stu Lowe with a blend of contemporary music mixed with easily remembered oldies, sponsored competitions, dedications, and this talented presenter's humour.
Oh, what a dobber. Phil Collins is One More Night, especially for Dave and Caroline. I bet she was surprised. And that's one of our most popular ones, That's been asked for a few times, although it was his second choice. 7 minutes away from 4 o'clock. We're slightly late, but here's the comp.
The voice of man.
Stu Lowe from 3 until 5:30 brings us to the Drive Time News programme. And then at 6, it's 3 hours of Night Fever. Presenter Chris Shaw takes care of the musical needs of our younger audience with singles, album, American and dance charts, and The Love Line, a special romantic dedication segment, all of which are sponsored by a variety of companies.
1, 2, 3. Going up to 4 1/4 after 6. Night Fever in session for Friday, the last show of the week. And coming up as always tonight, we have the Bo Diddley's American Top 30 between 7 and 8. And also the Love Line at 8:45, and a few other bits and bobs to discover as we go along. Stella Mitri.
It seems like weeks since you looked at me, baby, without that look of distaste.
Night Fever, with its contemporary chart music format, takes us through until 9 o'clock, when there's an hour of specialist sponsored music shows, from jazz through to brass band, from showbiz through to big bands. From 10 until close down at 1 a.m, it's Late Night Manx Radio with Bernie Quayle. Mature, easy listening music, plus a host of interesting guests, sponsored by a wide range of businesses.
Mitch Murray's name has been in brackets underneath a lot of #1 songs in Britain, in all over the world in actual fact. But out of the 300-odd songs you've written, Mitch, about how many have actually charted, to gone into the charts?
Well, in this country, which is the simplest way of doing it, because obviously you write songs and they're hits in some countries and not in others. Yes. Over here, I suppose around about the 20 mark, 20-ish, which is...
But they've all been biggies, haven't they?
Most of them, yes.
Where did all this come from, Mitch? There's obviously some influence. What about your family background? I mean, were they radio addicts in those days, listening to, like, Henry Hall or what have you?
Well, they were very enlightened.
Manx Radio.
From 1991, a day in the life of Manx Radio, featuring many voices from the time, including our much-missed friend and colleague, Susie Richardson. He passed away just over a year ago. To 1992 now, and a well-known caller for many years to Manx Radio's Man in Line.
Another outspoken petitioner was Marjorie Jochen, who said she wanted tough new immigration controls.
Why hasn't the Chief Minister done as he said he would do and bring in immigration control? And how will we control it? We will control it with tax. We will have a speculator's tax and we will have a development tax.
But there are hardly the people flowing in that there were.
How do you know? How do you know?
Well, you can tell,
can't you? You can't tell. Our island is awash with cars. It is awash with people.
Marge Jochen being interviewed by Sheena Mackay on Tynwald Day in 1992. Another well-known caller to the Man in Line for a number of years was Dorothy Quirk from Peel. In this edition of the programme from March 1993, presented by David Collister, Dorothy talks to David Dixon from the Steam Packet and also Richard Kirkman.
OK, we actually have a caller on the line now, and it's Dorothy. Hello, Dorothy.
Good morning. Now, I don't know which of these fine, brainy gentlemen are responsible, but as a resident of, say, a few years in Peel, I was horrified when I read in the paper that our local commissioners had turned down this tented village was to go up on the headlands. Now, surely this was looked into as regards drains and all before the Steam Packet made this offer. Or was it the fact that you give it to Peel because nobody else wanted it?
Oh, David Dixon. No, Richard, is it? Yes.
Looks like it, yeah. We were offered the opportunity to look at the Peel site. Dave Morgan, who runs the tented village in Nobles Park, went out to have a look. Sadly, being up on the headland, it's an extremely windy site. And
it's always been windy.
Well, that makes it very difficult for people living in tents.
Obviously, you don't know anything about Peel for a start.
Well, being in the position it is, particularly in Peel, Dave, when he went up there, certainly felt that the opportunity to run a tented village up there would be very difficult to manage indeed. When you're thinking of people in tented accommodation, if you get a particularly bad windy spell, it would be very inhospitable.
What about the drainage aspect, though, that Dorothy raises?
Well, certainly, as in Nobles Park, there's an extensive amount of work and financial investment required to put drains and services in to make it a competent campsite, and the timescale available is quite short.
So Peel is now completely out of the question, is it?
Peel is out of the question, yes.
Peel's out of the question, Dorothy.
Hold on a minute, yes. Well, knowing the town commissioners, that's possible anyway. But then again, there was a tented village, the boys at Ballarloch. Now, I don't know the Quayle family, only by sight. They cleared their site for the tented village and they were turned down. What happened there? Is it because it was too far out of Douglas?
Well, now, wait a minute. Which one is this? Glenloch?
Glenloch, I mean.
Glenloch, right. Has Glenloch been investigated?
I don't think Dave's been out there, but I wouldn't know why he would have turned up.
I mean, they do take holidaymakers anyway, so it may be not available. So,
but David, they're talking about the drainage. They had a golf course, putting course up there. There was a hut's been up there for years serving refreshments and all. So there was bound to be some drainage. Or was it, as I said before, because it was Peel and nobody could be bothered?
Well, wait a minute now. Let's just clear it. Well, are you going to actually look for somewhere else now, or have you given up on that one?
Dave is still actively looking because there's a tremendous number of people who want to come to the TT who at the moment are not able to do so.
And you could ship them if
we can ship them, yeah.
They can be shipped. Dorothy, thank you.
Oh, don't bother.
Right. Now, we've got some callers waiting for us, and we'll hear from them after the break.
The unforgettable Dorothy from Peel calling into the man in line in 1993. We'll just move back to the 1970s now, and a regular voice at that time was John Quilliam, who presented the regular Know Your Parish feature, along with a number of other programmes. In this recording from 1976, John gives a unique overview of the Isle of Man.
Sometimes one is asked the question of which is the nicest beauty spot in this island of Man. A most difficult question to answer. For what grander view can one get from the top of Snaefell Mountain on a clear day? Or what better scenery could one find than looking down from the Mull Hills and Cregnish onto the rocky coast by the Sound and the Calf? Or walk through the lonely slopes of Airy Cushland to Lagnakilia? A stroll amongst the short, golden flowering gorse and purple heather around the Point of Ayr. A journey between the hills of Sulby Glen and Faulty Will. The waterfalls of Spoot Vane, Ballaglass and the Doon. A trip through the Baldwin valleys and Ingebrek, over the moors from Brandywell by Druidale to Ravensdale and Ballaugh. A leisurely gaze from the Round Table or Slough, the sandy beach of the Len, or Port Erne from Bradda Head. To those with a different attitude to beauty, there are the ancient castles and monuments, old watermills, lead mines, coastal caves, chasms, curraghs. In fact, the contents of a book could not list all that this island has in the way of beauty. For, in my opinion, the real and true beauty spots lie in the out-of-the-way, partly hidden recesses, often by a tiny stream or hillside crag. And to touch or smell the glories of nature's floral art, to trace an overgrown footpath that once led to somewhere, to sit quietly on a sod hedge and watch the wild, colourful, feathered friends with their chords of music, all come within the category of beauty. Then there is the human contribution to these pleasures. To meet an old crofter or farmer whose ancient skills and crafts should never be forgotten. How absorbing it is, and it was, to meet such a one at the Starvey and discuss for an hour the making of straw thumb ropes, soganes and lankets. Yet another from the slopes of Arbury, and how he used the swing plough and the wheelless horse-drawn ridger. You had to watch your eye when you handled one of those things, he said. A charming lady from the Tops, who described in detail, while enjoying a cup of tea, how she used to make the perfect Manx butter. Of course, she exclaimed, the cows helped too.
John Quilliam talking in 1976. And that almost concludes the final edition of 50 Years Serving the Island, where throughout the last 12 months we've brought you many highlights from our archives as we celebrated 50 years since Manx Radio was transferred into public ownership to become the island's public service broadcaster. Each edition of this programme, along with lots of exclusive content from our archives, is available by going to manxradio.com/portal. And now, with just a few hours left of 2018, we'll take this opportunity to wish you a very happy new year from all of us at Manx Radio. But we'll finish this evening with one of our most fondly remembered pieces of audio, which people still ask about to this day. Last broadcast in 1998, when Manx Radio began broadcasting 24 hours a day, this is our close-down sequence, which was broadcast every morning at 1 a.m. as our transmitters fell silent for the night.
O land of our love,
Manx Radio is now closing down.
The Radio Vannin Doonanish.
Manx Radio recommences broadcasting at 6:30 a.m. We hope that you've enjoyed our programmes, and we look forward to bringing you information, enjoyment, good music and companionship every day.
The Radio Vannin Gol Toshach de Krilerish Eglielig Shea Mora Merach. The Trestein de Welsh en Oil Soile Jane Clarenine, as the Shinjichen Ron de Cholin Hewish Fis, Soile, Kjoliach Vai, as Koheshichthus, Gachle.
Manx Radio is the Isle of Man's national commercial radio station, broadcasting from Douglas Head in the beautiful Isle of Man.
She station the Shunach Radio Trach die Ellen Vannin to Radio Vannin, Krila was Count Dulish, ons Ellen Vannin Ellen.
To those of you who guard and protect us during the night, to the police and firemen, to those in the lighthouse service and coast guards, to doctors and nurses attending the sick, indeed to all who have to work while others sleep, we wish you a quiet and peaceful night.
Duish de Vrelara Oren is den Godishin fod na hi, den Amuren Shi is Mucha der an Isle, Dausen on Shivesh na Tayan Solshi is na Garden Koos, de Ligan is Bonderen Shivesha Horusen te Ching, de Jaru Dausen Nulju Biden dau Gobrige tret a Slayellen in Gadla, Tashin Giri Eru I Feich is Shiol.
To the fishermen at sea, and to all those who earn their living on the great waters around our little island, fair winds and good sailing.
Den I steren er voer, as daus nulje te kosnen en mege en de veugigen moeren me giet de muschen en ellen weg, kevai as sholje mai.
From all of us at Manx Radio, the voice of man, a very good night.
Voinel nulje eg Radio Vannin, Corre Vannin, I vier vaidju.